Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. This is another one in the series of our Be the Change guest speakers, and it's a really special event today. We've decided to start the Be the Change Award from our Be the Change working group. So as many of you know, the working group was started in order to keep our culture of EDI alive in Opteran, to make sure that everybody has a place to work that's inclusive and friendly and gives them the opportunity for growth. So today we've got a really special guest speaker, Professor Heidi Christensen, that our own founder, Professor James Marshall, is going to introduce.
Thanks, Cara. Welcome, Heidi. So Heidi comes from Denmark via Switzerland to Sheffield. And actually, we have a common association with the Department of Computer Science at the University of Sheffield, but I think yours is much longer than mine, joining in 2000, as I understand it. And since you joined, you've had a long-standing interest in ED&I, helping the department get the Silver Athena SWAN award, one of only a handful in the country, and that's the higher education ED&I, so Diversity, Equality, Inclusion Award. Also serving as faculty director for EDI from 2020 to 2022, and now as current head of department, overseeing the One University pillar of work, which includes EDI, wellbeing, sustainability, philanthropy, and collaborative culture. So we're very happy to have you as our first recipient of the Be the Change Award, which Cara will now present to you, and then we look forward to hearing about your experiences in promoting ED&I at Sheffield. Thank you.
I'm very happy to be able to present our award to you today. This is our first Be the Change Award, and it couldn't go to a more deserving candidate. So
that's amazing. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Fantastic. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Right, I'll have to put this one down then. I'll pass it over to you. Well, thank you so much for the welcome, everyone. Welcome everyone here in the room and, of course, online. So I've been all kitted out with various gadgets. Let's see. I wanted to kind of go with the theme of a bee, which I see now is very appropriate. So I've asked ChatGPT to do an inclusivity diversity bee and also come up with a pun on intersection of bees and diversity. So that's what we have there. I just wanted to talk you through various aspects of diversity, if you like, thinking a little bit about diversity drivers. So I'm thinking first about the whys, if you like. You probably know this already through some of the work of Cara and the kind of committee. It seems like you're already well on the way of this journey. But there is a clear understanding that there is a discrepancy in a number of men and women and other kind of characteristics in terms of who works in the tech industry, certainly in terms of leadership, compared to the rest of the kind of population. Coming back home to computer science in University of Sheffield, so we've got about 20% undergraduate students at the moment who are women. That is a pretty good number compared to kind of other Russell Group universities. We are very keen to expand on it, but we have come up from maybe having around 15%, something like 10 years ago, and that is a big difference. So we've now got a lot more students, but we now have this much more significant mass of women students. And if we sort of think about this in terms of the full pipeline from undergraduate students to PhD students to postdocs to lecturers, senior lecturers and professors, we are around 20% all the way up. That is also a major achievement. So James will probably remember when there were 0 female professors in the department, which is not that long ago. We had a couple, they left, but now we have about 20%. So we're very proud of this, but of course this needs consistent kind of work all the way through. And this sort of leads me to this introduction of a concept of the leaky pipeline, which is often used, and you might have come across this in your work as well, thinking about this pool of women, if that's the characteristics you're thinking about, coming in at the bottom, if you like, and kind of moving through and dropping out along the way. Again, this is ChatGPT having a go at what this might look like. This kind of metaphor originated in the US, and some of the kind of drivers we know are kind of issues are kind of here, stereotypes, lack of role models, etc., kind of helps perpetuate this, if you like. Now, I'm not a big fan necessarily, I can see the fonts have gone a bit funny, but anyway, I'm not a big fan of just thinking about this as a pipeline thing. It's a very economical model, which was introduced, as I said, in the US because they realised there was a gap in engineering or STEM students coming through, a gap in terms of the number of white engineering students we had. And they thought, oh, who else could we interest in this? What I quite like is to have a little bit more of a holistic view on this. So another reason, apart from filling this gap, that we want to kind of rebalance the gender balance, for example, is that this makes a lot more sense. If we, as engineers and computer scientists, are creating solutions for the world, it should be designed and created by people who are like the world. And it's problematic if it's a particular segment of the world that's creating these solutions. So I think we also have a moral obligation to try and educate students that are much more representative of the world they live in. And a little bit of a sideline here, some of you might know this book already, so there is a lot of work, of course, on bias introduced through design and through the use and misuse of data, which are not representative of the world. So this is one of the kind of seminal works there. So in terms of drivers, we've seen that numbers show an imbalance. We've seen there's a moral argument. But we also know that diverse teams do better, so there's a lot of evidence towards this. It makes very little sense, even in a sort of information theoretic perspective, to, say, clone someone like James or Alex. You just get more of the same, which, of course, has got some advantages, but you really need a bit of diversity and complementariness in your team. So there was a lot of arguments along that side as well. So if you want better solutions, if you want the company to do better, you want these more diverse teams that bring in more diverse ideas. So the final argument is really that improving things in general, for all genders, for all characteristics, improves things for all of us. So it is in all of our interest really to kind of work and think about these things. So the kind of numbering has disappeared here, but there's basically these kind of four different aspects that we could think in terms of drivers of why we're wanting to do this. So coming back to these journeys, I just wanted to briefly describe the department's journey, the kind of how we've done this, and thinking a little bit about maybe some of this might be helpful or kind of useful for Opteran as well. So James mentioned Athena SWAN. That focuses solely on gender, but it was one of the first things we did in the department, and it's sort of as that bootstrapped all of the future work. It's a kind of 5-yearly thing you put in. You see here our plan. So our current plan is to apply for gold next year. We would then be the first computer science department with a gold. So that is pretty exciting. It's top level, basically a big strategy you create and then a massive action plan that takes you through all of the things. It's really specific of what we're wanting to do, but it does drive that awareness and kind of accountability, if you like, and putting ownership towards some of these actions. These are some of the things that we focus on along these ways. And a lot of the initiatives, so here are just some examples of the things that's put in place, some of it from within the department and some of it, of course, wider from the university. So things like having transparent promotion criteria and good support and career development in general. Having flexible working conditions, so things like core working hours, so meetings always, so that you could, for example, pick up kids around those hours, ability to work part-time, now of course working hybrid as well. Staff and student training in general is very good and has built up over the time, so people becoming much more aware. So back in 2012, when I first started engaging with this, when I brought information to departmental meetings, there was a lot of people saying, you know, we can't do anything if people aren't applying, if the women aren't applying for these jobs, how can we do anything about it? And I think this awareness over these years have kind of created this much more better understanding of that, what the kind of drivers are there. And again, also being very explicit about considering ED&I and again having a staff, a student cohort that are kind of skilled in this. Celebrating diversity, which of course Opteran is also well on the way of doing. And then regularly reviewing anything outward facing. So if you're trying to attract a more diverse cohort, you need to be able to shout about what you're wanting to see and making sure that outward imagery, wording, language, etc. is kind of gender neutral. So I had a little think about what might be ported to Opteran, and I know you're already doing a lot of this work here, and we're very happy to carry on kind of working with you. I think being really clear about your values, what is it you're wanting to do before you start any of the other work, They shouldn't be tokenistic. You really need to think about where you're wanting to go. What is the sort of environment you're wanting to create? What is the sort of company you would be proud of working in? Ensure strong leadership buy-in, which I know you have. That's what we've benefited from in the university as well. This is absolutely key because things are going to cost money and things are going to cost resources, and you need that kind of top buy-in to kind of sign yourself. Create awareness, as we talked about as well, telling people about your values, various incentives and initiatives that kind of supports what it is you're wanting to promote. And then have a long-term view. It's not just about gender, and you don't change things just overnight. So easily think 2, 3, 5 years ahead for sure. And take inspiration from others. So I think some of the things I think can be tempting is to go out and sort of start lots of new initiatives without seeing what is happening perhaps in similar companies or in companies that's a little bit further ahead, and that would avoid kind of doing some of the kind of pitfalls I think there. So a little bit about my own journey, which Cara kind of liked or mentioned that she might like to have in there. I really wanted to be a civil engineer to construct bridges. This is my favourite bridge in Denmark, connecting one of our big islands with Sweden. But in Denmark, you do an engineering degree for 5 years, and the first years are kind of foundation years, and I got tempted into electrical engineering. So I never got to build these bridges. I did build an awful lot of Lego. I do think that's part of the kind of creativity that comes out of Denmark. These are my kids and my brother. This is about 1/10 of the Lego we have. But that kind of building things with your hands kind of, I think, stood me in good stead. And of course, Lego back then was super gender neutral. It's just kind of really general colours and everything. So just briefly in terms of milestones and my kind of career, so electrical and electronic engineering, PhD in 2002, but had already started a postdoc before I finished the PhD, wouldn't recommend it, and was a postdoc for a long, long time, part-time as well, whilst my children were small. And then I became a lecturer in 2015, and I think relatively quickly became a professor and then the head of department. It's the first female head of department. I think that's not really to do with me, but to do with that journey that the department has been through as well, and the university kind of recognising and supporting women like that. And my research is kind of on the intersection of AI and speech tech and healthcare, so things like detecting signs of dementia and speech and language, but also integrating quite a lot about ED&I issues in kind of speech tech, so thinking about bias and data, etc. These are some of the things and comments I've heard along the way. So, of course, you saw the milestones before. These are some of the things people have said to me, often very well-meaning, but often very ignorant. This is on a big project meeting with the big stars of Edinburgh and Cambridge. One of the other postdocs says to me, "Who does your programming?" I do my programming, of course, myself. Going to conferences, again, well-meaning colleagues saying, "Who looks after the children?" Knowing my husband as well, he's in the same field, so it's not like they think I'm a single mum. Or who will be cooking dinner. My husband has never been asked this, and I guess James has never been asked this when he's been away. So there's lots of things like this that also happens, and it happens to women a lot more than it happens to men. So a lot of the women you see in tech in general are here despite of all of these challenges. And in general, minorities, of course, are here despite of these challenges. And there is a kind of discrepancy that we're trying to, and I try to always remind people, we're trying to change how things are for those who fell out of that pipeline, if you like. They're not necessarily all completely like me. I kind of wanted to stay and perhaps fought for it a bit more than some of the people who, for one reason or the other, didn't feel that this was the right place for them. So that's the end of my kind of talk. It's all about journey choices, I think, along the way. I heard a nice saying the other day saying, you know, there's only one path in life. That's the one behind you, and everything ahead of you is for you to kind of choose. These were my kids on Sunday on our way back from a little trip back to Denmark. You saw in the earlier picture, it looked like I had 2 girls, but actually my son here came out as trans a couple of years ago. So now I have one of each. And of course that again sort of makes you think about gender issues and various issues. But they're both separate paths, and this is what kind of happens. And that's basically it for this kind of brief overview of everything. So thank you very much.